Today we'll take a look at the alcohol markers from Action. And with below 30 cents per marker, I have to ask the question if this is not too cheap even for us beginners. Let's be real, who does not love affordable art supplies? But when something is so cheap as these markers, I get very suspicious, but also really curious, so let's test them out. We won't unpack all of them together, I'll spare you that. So I picked this one for representation. The box does look nice, and we can already see that every pen has the name of the color as well as a number on it. And that number will make it much easier for me to write it down for swatching. The pens do come in a plastic container that you can actually stack on each other. There are little nubs here and little holes that you can use for that. So they're really making a quite nice first impression. Again, the first thing we're doing with these is test drive them by swatching. That just means try every single one of them out, write the number of the color next to it, so we already know how it goes down on paper, and to get a first feeling of how to work with them. But while I'm already starting swatching in the background, let me talk for a little bit about why I find it so important to really understand your medium and also understand its quality and its influence on your creative process. Have you ever seen a 5-minute craft video? No, if you haven't, don't go there and watch them now. That channel really does not deserve that. 5-minute craft is making videos about life hacks, or what they call hacks. They usually don't work, or they need additional steps they don't tell you. It is really just for clicks. If you don't know that and you're now watching one of those videos and full of enthusiasm, you are saying, okay, I want to try this, I want to make this. You follow their instructions to the T, and in the end it doesn't work. Now you don't know why it didn't work. Is it the materials, is it the steps in their video, or is it you? Especially in this case, it's definitely not you. But you don't necessarily know that, and that's what I find sad and dangerous. By the way, it's the same with some of those TikTok baking trends. There are things that simply don't work, which are fake. People try these fake things and they lose trust in themselves and their abilities. And that's why it really is key to understand the materials you're using. If I buy bad alcohol markers, bad oil colors, colored pencils, and I follow some instructions, the result can be quite different to what you want to achieve. And it's not necessarily your skill level. I just don't want you to use bad materials or bad instructions, and just because of that lose interest in an activity that could be perfect for you and you could have great fun with. But also important, in this context, expensive is not always good and cheap is not always bad. That's why I really try to not use them as synonyms, and we are also taking a look at cheap art supplies here. But what actually annoyed me the most was not even the fault of the markers. Somebody went ahead and just selected all the markers from my package that they wanted. Considerate as they were, they replaced them with other markers, but just not the colors that were supposed to be in the package, meaning that in the end I lack basically all of the yellow ones. That really annoyed me very much. My local Action did not have any of those markers left, so there really was not anything I could do. So learn from my mistakes and check them out before you buy them. But we're basically done with the swatching now, and the first impression is quite positive. I mean, for markers that cost around 30 cents, you're not expecting any miracles, you're expecting a catastrophe. But the markers are pretty nice, they're quite juicy, not a single one of them was dried out or something. For the first outing, I'm impressed. And it's pretty fun to use them, which is also quite important. So the big question remains, how do they mix? Because with alcohol markers, that is where they normally really shine. As the name says, alcohol markers are based on alcohol, not water, like general markers you know from back when you were a kid. Because of the alcohol, actually after you put it on paper, you can reactivate the pigments and therefore mix colors quite nicely. But if you don't know alcohol markers, you might be more confused by that than anything else, so let me show you. But before we start mixing, very important to say those pens come with 2 different tips. And that's really cool, not exactly that they have 2 tips because that is pretty common, but one of them is a real brush tip. A brush nib is generally, like the name says, like a brush. You can color in, you can draw much more dynamically. With the other side, the bullet nib, you can see it's very narrow lines and very fixed. In cheap markers, having a brush tip like this is definitely not common, especially my impression is it's a quite nice one. Of course, now it could be a longevity question of this brush tip. It could break after some time, but honestly, a marker like this, it runs dry anyway, so for now, definitely another plus. But you can see me here already starting to mix in the background, and that again was another positive surprise. Of course, this, like anything in art, will need a lot of practice to really master. I'm a beginner, I had to correct a lot, so I didn't really manage to get the color fade where I exactly wanted it, because I had to use the lighter and the darker one interchangeably to get it mixed smoothly. But another thumbs up from me. I honestly did not expect this kind of performance. Also important for you to know before you start using alcohol markers for the very first time, they normally bleed through paper like nothing else. The paper I used here is already 200 grams, so definitely not the thinnest one. So especially if you're drawing into a sketchbook or something, put something between the pages, just to be safe. Then here in fast forward to different color combinations, a green one and a blue one. And generally the same result, mixing was great. They mostly behave like I want them to. Now I tried two blue tones that were not as close together as the other ones. I wanted to know how that works to have a little bit more flexibility, more drama in the contrast. It didn't work out nearly as good, but I think that is to be expected. Now we finally have another negative point. I wanted to try to mix black with grey, and the black is not that black. Well, alcohol markers in general are pretty transparent colors, so it's difficult to really reach an actual black, but I would have expected a little bit more, even for that price. Here I took my Pierre Noir, which is about the blackest pigment that I own, just for comparison's sake, so you can see, yeah, it could be much darker. Now for another important test, fine liner, ink fine liner, really black pens. Because also with alcohol ink we need some kind of outline around our drawing. Not always, but in general it has to be possible. So I drew a line on the color to make sure that it doesn't feather out. And I drew with the alcohol ink over the lines to make sure that they don't smudge, and everything great. Another extremely important test that I actually almost forgot. There will be a construction drawing. So when I cover pencil with the alcohol markers, can I still erase it? And the answer is no. At least these markers are creating some kind of layer over the pencil that makes it so that you cannot erase it anymore. Very important to know, we will have to work around that. So now we have learned a lot about the material, what we can and cannot do, which means we can finally jump into creating an actual artwork. And when I look for something to draw, I more often than not end up drawing a portrait. And when I'm not looking for a specific person to draw, I like to take a look at Pixabay actually. They have a lot of great pictures that won't get you in trouble with copyright. So if you need something like that, it's a place worth looking at. Not sponsored and not affiliated. In this case, I needed something a little bit more colorful than usual because I wanted to use a lot of colors. But I ended up using colors for the skin that I probably should not have used. Number one, I was actually aiming for a little stronger colors. Number two, the skin colors that are in the set I did not really like that much. And reason number three, when somebody else finally saw the picture, they told me that the person depicted looked like they were severely sunburned. I didn't notice because I have an issue seeing red and green, but damage was done. Now this is how it's intended to be. And let me reiterate, this is my very first picture I am drawing with alcohol markers. and I'm not a friend of colors normally. So please be kind down in the comments, but still tell me what I should have done differently, where I can improve, because this was a very new experience for myself. I've watched a lot of experts drawing other videos here on YouTube, but I really did not find that much information on how to do this better. And technique without practice only gets you so far anyway. So I just went for it, which honestly is anyway my preferred method. And with that in mind, the result is not half bad, I think. I'm actually pretty happy with it. But now let's get to my final verdict. Can I recommend these markers to a beginner? Without a big counterpoint, I can say yes. I had loads of fun with them. There are a couple of minus points. The black is not perfect. That colorless marker did not act as a blender as it was supposed to. The choice of colors is a bit strange, but for that price, I personally can live with all that. Very well. So if you can pick them up somewhere, you can't go too wrong. So go for it. But that's all for today. I hope you liked the video. If so, I would really appreciate if you came back for more. To do so, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on all notifications. Again, you've heard that before. Give me that like and let me know down in the comments other stuff I should try. But that's all for now. Thanks again, have the greatest of days, and goodbye.